I'm Nicole Shimoni, filling in for Patrick McCoy, who had an emergency this evening. It is November 19th, 2024, and it is 6:46 p.m. and the Westchester Borough Council meeting I'm calling to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Sheila, why don't you lead it tonight?
Salute the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, justice.
All right, the executive session, the announcement for that is that, okay. Wait a minute, bear with me because I'm filling in late this evening, so, okay. So the executive session on October 15th, shoot, what was that one? That's not on here. Personnel. October 15th was personnel. The purpose of tonight's executive session was also personnel and potential litigation. And I also want to announce that the boards and commissions deadline has been extended for submissions for anyone who wants to be on one of our boards and commissions. And so it has been extended to December 10th, 2024. So please submit your resumes. We got a lot of openings and we would love everybody's support with what we're doing in the borough. So then announcement of the public hearings scheduled for November 20th at 6:30. There is a short-term rental, chapters 112 and chapter 66, and there is the adoption of the 2025 budget. Amendments and notices can be found on our website, Westchester Borough, or westchester.com/790/monthly-borough-government-meetings. So you can find that on our website. Regarding the vacancies that are open that I talked about that have been extended to 12/10, there's the Historic Architectural Review Board opening, 1 person, Human Relations, 1 person, Civil Service Commission, 1 person, Library Board, 1 person, Committee to Reestablish Rail Service in Westchester, 4 people, Sustainability Advisory Ad Hoc Committee, 1 person, the Recreation Committee, 1 person, and the Transportation Advisory Committee. We're looking for 5 to 7 people to fill that new committee. Again, go to our website and you can find those full descriptions. With that, I will open it up to comments, suggestions, and petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda.
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. Last Wednesday, I tried to get home. I was delayed. 50 block of Lacey Street was parked out. Car number 1 was stopped behind 501 South High Street, partially blocking Sharon Alley. Car number 2 nose in toward the curb. Car number 3 blocking alley and street for 3 minutes. I think we should remove the bump outs on Lacey Street. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay, all right. We'll move on to reports and presentations. Property and casualty workers' comp quotes for insurance.
Good evening. My name is Isaac Thomas. I'm your insurance agent for property and casualty. And I believe you've all been given my proposal. Had a chance to review it. Any questions or things I need to cover to make good use of your time tonight? There is a choice to make within the options that I've placed in front of you. The renewal with Trident Public Risk constitutes, just within that package, constitutes an 11.6% increase, whereas the Travelers alternative option same coverages, however, with larger deductibles. So we're doubling the deductible for property and doubling the deductible for auto physical damage from 5,000 to 10,000. But there is savings that comes with that. Beyond that, the other decision to make is, do we remove the workers' compensation policy from AmTrust and place that also with Travelers, or leave it as is? Savings there, de minimis. So Travelers will take one part or both. And the other option is to stay with Trident and AmTrust as is. We approached multiple carriers on your behalf this year. EMC was one of them. They're a specialty inside the space, as well as Selective. Both missed my deadline, and I fear that for EMC, it was a little bit beyond their scope of comfortability. So that's what I have in my presentation, besides the proposal that you've all reviewed. Any more questions?
Okay, thank you.
Both carriers specialize inside the space. Trident is a newer organization. Both coverages come from carriers with extremely strong financial backing. If you wanted to go with the strongest carrier in the space with the most written premium and municipal coverage, it would be Travelers. I'm not sure how much that constitutes a sway one way or the other. Travelers is a bit of a savings, roughly 2.07% less than expiring. It's almost a coin flip for me. I feel like there's strength in a carrier that is not new to the space, but trying hard to gain a foothold and stand out. Whereas Travelers is tried and true and been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time in this industry, property casualty specifically. New carriers also don't have a lot of experience. That's a bit of a risk. They could be taking rate increases around the corner. So,
Could be, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments about this?
When do we need to make a decision on this? Are you
So
presenting this for?
as it relates to the budget, there's small changes inside there, but up until the day before renewal, we can make these changes, which is the first of the year.
Isaac, my question to you is the deductibility, the
Mhm.
double. How does that impact our normal year?
Sure.
Yeah, what is our, like, over the year, what do we actually have to pay out?
Sure.
Pocket
So
deductible.
you've had great years for property coverage. So I can't demonstrate to you monies that would have been saved with a higher or lesser deductible for the property side. However, on the auto side, auto physical damage, we'd be moving, if we went with Travelers, we'd be moving your auto deductibles from 5,000 collision, 5,000 comprehensive, that's per accident, to 10,000 per collision, 10,000 comprehensive. So that's another $5,000 out of the borough's pocket for every auto incident.
How many incidents do we have last year that we can just mentally,
17
okay,
auto accidents. Now, not all of those rose to the level where we had to repair our vehicle, but there was an incident that was reported, 17. And we've had, I think, an average of 7 over the past 5 years. 7 per year for auto accidents.
got to run some math.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you're looking at, 5,000 times 17. Let's go 20. It's easier to do the
Sure.
math. And then you look at the savings that you're going to get, it's negligible.
yeah,
So it's not a wash. It's upside
not
down.
a wash. No.
Yeah, it's upside down. And I know there's some people in the room way smarter than me, like those guys down there, that they do it for a living, but I know it's upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish that I could say that Travelers would offer a lesser deductible, to be more comparable, but they will not. That is where they've drawn the line.
I think moving this to either the ACT committee or the finance committee for next month would be
Sure.
the way to move forward.
Be happy to
I
come back.
agree. I think we need to talk about it amongst ourselves a little bit more,
No worries.
the information that's been provided. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Westchester Public Library Annual Report.
Hello, hi. I'm Maggie Stanton. I'm the new director at the Westchester Public Library. I want to thank you for having me here tonight so I can talk about how wonderful this library is. So just some basic stats about our library. We serve a population of all the municipalities together of over 53,000. In 2023, we had 11,600 cardholders, and we had over 150,000 checkouts, and we had over 76,000 visits to our library. We also had 243 programs for children and adults and teens, and we had just over 4,800 attendees at those programs. Our total collection is also over 47,000 physical items within the library as well. Sorry. So, oh, shoot. All right, so some of the material services that we do provide for the public include obviously books, magazines, and newspapers, but we also do have e-materials. So you can get ebooks, audiobooks, and even magazines from Flipster. We also have video streaming with Canopy, so you can use the service for free with your library card. We also have databases such as Ancestry, the library edition, which is accessible within the library. New York Times, Driver's Education, Mango Languages, and two of the newest databases are the Morning Star Investment Center and Comics Plus for anybody who prefers to read a graphic novel on their tablet. We also have DVDs, CDs, video games, and we also have STEM kits for the kids as well. I know my son has appreciated them. They had like little bugs that he could study. Our programming services include children's story times. We even have ones with dance classes. These story times get children to be school ready by the time they get to kindergarten, and also enhances their summer when they are home. We have programming in the summer with our summer reading programs, and we actually saw an increase this year with the registrants for that program. Our teen and youth volunteer opportunities and programs this year included even a bake-off, which was quite delicious. And we also have adult lectures on a variety of subjects from local history to author events. We just actually have one at the Chester County Historical Center with Nita Prose. It was a very successful event and a wonderful way to get community involved. Again, we also have the summer reading for adults as well now. We did bingo cards. We saw a huge increase in participation in 2024. I think the year before there was 25. This year we had about 200. We were raffling off an e-reader, and I think that got us the extra numbers. And we also offer test proctoring for any virtual students. So if anybody's online doing school for college, they can come to our location and we can proctor an exam for them. We also offer computers and printers, as well as hotspots that patrons can check out for a low fee. And we also have outdoor seating, so our Wi-Fi can be accessed even when we're closed. Like many libraries, we now also have a library of things. So we actually have specialty cake pans that patrons can come and check out. So they don't need to get a SpongeBob SquarePants. They can come to us and get it. And we also have museum passes. One of the best ones we have actually is Longwood Gardens. We're one of the only 4 libraries invited in Chester County to have access to this pass. And we also have a board game and puzzle exchange. So if you have any old board games, please bring them to the library and pick a new one for yourself. This would not be possible without funding. Last year 2023, we had about $560,000 in revenue, and a third of that is coming from the county and from the state. The other third we're raising them ourselves, and the rest is coming from the municipalities that we serve. When we actually look at just our municipalities, Westchester is actually responsible for about 57% of our funding. So we are very thankful for that from Westchester. Sorry, pages are, I can't see that screen over there, I'm sorry. And then when you're looking at our per capita rates, you can actually see Westchester is hitting the state suggested $5 per capita. That is from the State Library of Pennsylvania. And I'm very thrilled to know that I'm working at a library that has at least one municipality that is hitting that goal. We are working with the surrounding municipalities to get them to increase their funding to hopefully get to that level as well. And we're looking to do it in an incremental fashion. So for Westchester, since they are responsible for so much of our funding, you should know that Westchester is 39% of our cardholders, and they also represent about 30% of all of our checkouts at the library in 2023. And so for 2025, we are having plans to bring in more adult programming and events. We're looking to not just have them at the library, but also move them off-site. We're hoping to have more adult lectures throughout the municipalities in rooms such as this with parking lots such as yours. And we're also looking to do more events in the local parks, not just in Westchester, but also in the surrounding municipalities so we can build up those relationships as well. We're also looking to bring in some new technologies. We're hoping to get a 3D printer for public use, maybe even a Cricut, and create a small makerspace. So that way all of our library card holders and non-card holders can come in and use some of the technologies that they might not necessarily have at home. And we just want to thank you again for your continued support of the Westchester Public Library. I know I'm kind of new to this library, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And I just want to say thank you. My name is Lance Nelson. I'm a resident of the Borough at 300 Dean Street block, and I'm the president of the board, actually been involved with the library for a little over a decade. We appreciate immensely the relationship between the Borough and the library. And if those of you are not familiar with it, the Borough actually owns the ground and the library actually owns the building. So we're kind of intricately intertwined there. But thank you so much for all your support over the years.
Well, thank you. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for supporting
you.
our families and children and all that stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good.
All right, we'll move on to old business. Approve October 15th and 16th Borough Council meeting minutes. We'll move that to consent. New business, approve the reappointment of the following board, committee, commission members. Historic Architectural Review Board, Harb Philip Yocum. Planning Commission, Matthew Clapp. Zoning Hearing Board, Michael Pastino. Westchester Library Board, Christopher Hazley, Mary Brooks, Andrea Moore. Recreation Committee, Jen O'Brien and Chantel Fieldhouse. Bid Authority Board, Tyrone Taylor. Sustainability Advisory Committee, Abby Caden and Barbara Clark. Community Campus Committee, Marty Nebel, Caleb Wolfram, and Kane Bender. And the Pension Committee, Jeff Kitchen. Any questions from anyone on? No? So we'll move all of those to consent as well. All right, smart growth. Do we have
Nicole,
Jim?
Ms. Shimon, I'm going to let Andy Belwar, who's here for John Long, sit in my place. So he's handling this matter. So I'll move over to his seat. Thank you, Andy.
Were we going to get Jim for this as well? Were we going to bring him? No, for this? Okay, okay.
Good evening. Andrew Belwar, Special Counsel to the Borough for certain land development matters. You have on your agenda 250 East Market Street. It's a redevelopment project. You can move this forward to tomorrow night. We have a written resolution for Borough Council to consider tomorrow night that would give final plan approval to this development project. There is one outstanding issue which Developers Council, Brian Nagel, is here tonight and would like to discuss. I'll tee it up for you. The idea is that for this type of development, a developer has to provide to the borough 5% of the contiguous area of 5% of the total area that's being developed. The developer, by way of a letter today, asked for a partial waiver. Since it's a SALDO provision, you can waive it if you like in full or in part. They're asking for a partial waiver to allow them to dedicate 2,034 square feet of a property that's across the streets on Franklin, right across the street, as a partial payment, if you will, of the rec fee in lieu of. Then they would pay the balance in cash under the fee in lieu provision. That's where the partial waiver would come in. So Mr. Nagel is here tonight to tell you why you might want to do it. Let me give you my thoughts as to the other side of the argument. The applicable provision under your ordinance calls for a minimum contiguous area of 5% of the total tract area. There's an argument that since this is across Franklin Street, that it's not contiguous. In fact, it's a different parcel. It has a different parcel number, a different address, and it's in a different zoning district, separated by a street. Also, with the preliminary plan that was submitted to you, the developer had a note on there that the developer agrees to pay a rec fee in lieu of. They did not say, we'll pay a rec fee in lieu of less the amount for this particular strip. So those are the reasons why you would consider not granting the waiver. I now yield to Mr. Nagel to tell you why you might consider it.
Good evening, Brian Nagel on behalf of the applicant. Yeah, so the land in question that's being offered for dedication, and I understand that's a technical requirement under your ordinance that we offer that for dedication. Our expectation would be that it would continue to be owned and maintained by the owner of the apartment complex that's being developed here. But obviously, we think this is a natural area to leave open for use by the residents of the building and by other folks in the neighborhood. And there's a request for the partial waiver, as I had articulated at Smart Growth and previously. It is contiguous to the property. I don't think there's really any reasonable question about that. It's a perfect use for this parcel of land. The borough still gets a sizable fee in lieu of recreation. My client had asked for some other credits for other things that we'd have to discuss in the future. Those aren't decisions that have to be made now, but for work that my client did to investigate issues with the borough's sewer system, and some other things that we'd have to provide supporting documentation. We can deal with that at a later date because this isn't going to move forward extremely quickly. So we'd have time on those issues. The other issue, which I've articulated before, is that the courtyards within this building and the waiver request was made an alternative to the primary position of myself and my client, which is that the courtyards within this building do meet the provisions of your ordinance as recreation space. You all are well aware from prior discussions, there's a picture in your ordinance that shows courtyard public space as the courtyard within the developed apartment building. That's been accepted previously. Your ordinance did change from when, for example, Chestnut Square was developed, but those changes, in my opinion, do not impact that issue. So I believe that the rec space within the building does qualify under your ordinance. That being said, this is an offer to resolve that issue and to work collaboratively together to come up with a plan that makes sense in this area for this project. I think that the rec fee, not including any deductions that the borough might later agree to, would be $210,000. So still a sizable amount of money. And then this area constitutes, as Mr. Belwar said, about 2/5 of the rec fee would be credited here. So if this is accepted by the council. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I know when we were here last week, Ms. Shimoni, you had said you wanted to go over and take a look at it. I did the same. I walked by. I think it's clearly an area that you want to have there that's available for use for dog walking, residents to utilize. It's the perfect spot for it, frankly. I don't know what you thought when you went and looked at it, but I would submit that this is sort of the perfect resolution of the open issue. And this project can move forward in a way that's beneficial for the future residents of the building, for the neighborhood, for the borough generally.
Would anyone like to?
That's a good question. I don't know what my client would do with it. It could be redeveloped as a home site for probably a single homeowner, I would think is what you could probably do there.
My question is, I did send pictures to various people about the existing building that's there, 303 East Minor, the side of the building where the house had already been removed. And if we decide to move forward with the park, the pocket park there, how's that building going to be addressed? Because no one will be able to get back in there again. Are we going, is the developer come up with an idea? Because right now it's hapshot the way it looks now.
Yeah, so I think what my client would plan to do is to have a fence extending, and you could see the gray line. There would be a fence extending along the yard of the property owner. And then you've got an exposed brick wall for anybody who ever went over and took a look at that. So maybe my client would choose to put up a fence in front of that wall or work with the property owner to come up with some reasonable plan so that, they're in coordination with the installation of a pocket park there, so that it wouldn't be disruptive to the homeowner, and you could have some fencing. And obviously you've got some landscaping there that additionally buffers that homeowner's property.
Who owns the exterior wall of that 303?
The property, the adjacent property owner, the homeowner.
303 owns that wall, even though
Go ahead.
because it was the inside wall, the outside wall of the other house. So who's responsible for, to make sure that that looks really presentable so it fits right into the neighborhood?
That's a good question. I haven't looked exactly at that title line or at the work that was done, but I believe from going out there that homeowner owns that wall and is responsible for its maintenance. That's my understanding.
It doesn't sit well for me. And I've made my voice clear on that because once the pocket park is in there and we have street trees in there and we have bushes and benches and everything else, we can't expect a homeowner to climb over all of your stuff that we're going to potentially approve and do the repairs. Because right now, the building is, portion of the building, some of the bricks are falling out. That needs to be pointed. The basement side isn't very good. And in the backyard, the fence. If you're just going to throw a fence up there and try to hide the wall, that's very unacceptable for me.
First of all, I think the homeowner would have a prescriptive easement to be able to maintain that side of their building. That's already, in my opinion, that's already in existence. Secondly, I don't know that if council moves forward with accepting this, it could certainly do so with the suggestion that my client work with the homeowner to come up with some acceptable plan in that regard. I mean, that decision can't be made now because that would require collaboration or discussion between my client and the homeowner. But certainly, if that's your desire, you could move it forward in that direction. My client would have to discuss it with the homeowner. My client can't say, I'm going to do this and that. It's not their property. So that would have to be coordinated with the homeowner. They have to decide if they want to do something with their building. And if my client did something in collaboration with them, you have to understand there's all kinds of liability issues. My client just can't go in there and do something. That would have to be done by the homeowner, but that could be done in collaboration with my client.
Any other comments? So Brian, I think at the end of the day, Lillian voiced a lot of concerns, as you recall, last week.
I do.
And I did go back and look at the property. We also have talked to Andy, who's also given us some details and additional information regarding like the zoning piece of it. And again, that it's debatable whether or not this is contiguous on the property and what have you. And so I think at this point, the preference is to just get the entire fee in lieu that was promised during the preliminary, or that was alluded to during the preliminary. And therefore, you guys can keep that property. And actually, it would be nice to have a house on there that's like a home. We talk about that all the time. Is there more opportunity to put some homes into the borough? And so whether it's, even if it's just one, it's kind of nice to have another house that goes up that somebody can buy and live in as well, like and own. So that's kind of where the wind has turned.
I just want to clarify one thing. There was a note on the preliminary land development plan that the engineers had included, but my client had never specifically offered the full fee because the position was, and that was really before I was involved, but that the fee isn't due because of the other recreation areas. So part of what I'm proposing and asking council to accept this area, which there is no zoning issue because that use is available in any district. I believe you can have a park in any district in the borough. So I don't believe there's a zoning issue.
I think that's more about how it's not contiguous because it's in a different zone. That's what that point was.
I don't think the fact that a property is in a different zone bears on whether or not it's contiguous. I think it certainly is contiguous. And I think what council should be considering is what's the best use for this land in light of the development that's being approved. And I don't have a vote. You get to vote. So you'll make that decision. I think it's pretty clear that the best use is to make it available for the use of the residents of the building and the surrounding residents. And it's a resolution of our position that there's no rec fee due. So you have to consider that as well. We're trying to, and I mentioned this at Smart Growth, my client has been collaborative with the borough in all of the projects it's developed in the borough. My client has done what it's been asked on this project. Every change that was asked for, my client made. The borough and my client have to continue to work together on the sewer issue, which council is well aware of, as well as other issues that will come up during this project. And I'm asking the borough to consider this as a resolution of the problem that I think you have with the ordinance, which is there's no rec fee due. So I'm asking you to resolve that here and now tonight, rather than carrying it on into the future, both in consideration of the issues in your ordinance, which they're debatable. I agree with Mr. Belwar. You can debate a number of those issues. When we have issues that are debatable like that, we try to resolve them. When you have a developer, such as the developer in this case, which has collaborated with the borough in the past, has done everything the borough has asked on any project that I've ever been involved in and any project that I've observed, I think that bears consideration by this council in deciding this issue. It's not black and white by any stretch of the imagination. I do think it's the best use for the parcel in conjunction with this project. And so I would ask you to strongly consider this as a resolution of the debated issues that I've raised.
So I'm a little confused, and Mr. Belwar, maybe you can help provide some clarity. Mr. Nagel just said that there's no fee in lieu of due here for this property.
What he's arguing is that the ordinance states that you have to provide for public recreation areas. He's counting the courtyards within his development as public recreation areas. And he's pointing to, yes, there's a diagram in the ordinance that maybe references a courtyard. But my counter to that is that the explicit text of the ordinance says that the rec area must be open to the general public. And if you've seen the plans, I don't think you can securely say that those courtyards are open to the general public. So that's a fight maybe we'll have in the courts, but I think you're on pretty solid ground to say we're going to consider that our ordinance says that you have to provide open space rec areas that are open to the general public.
Thank you. That helps. The other point, Mr. Nagel, I have is listening to the recording last week, a couple of times you mentioned that, this parcel was part of the preliminary plan since the beginning, as was the part where the developer indicated that they would pay the fee in lieu of. Now we seem to be separating what was committed during the preliminary planning period and what wasn't.
And that's a fair perspective to take on it. And I understand where you're coming from. These projects are dynamic. Details like this, like the fee in lieu of recreation, as this council is well aware, is an issue that's usually reviewed and resolved during final land development approval. That's typically how it's been done in the projects I've been involved in. And so you're right, that was put on there. That was put on there by the, I believe, the project engineers before my client or myself, and I wasn't involved in the project at that time, had really taken a look at it. So in looking at it and focusing on this issue, it became clear that we had to take the position that we're taking now. And I think it's a reasonable position. I mentioned it, smart growth, the other night. I think it's I think it's an issue that rises to the level of my client's constitutional rights, because the borough has agreed that there's no fee in lieu of recreation due for other apartment projects where they had courtyards in the building. And Mr. Belwar said that you can argue that the picture shows something. It's not that you can argue it. It says courtyard, public space. So the private courtyards in the building, in your ordinance, a picture's worth 1,000 words, says courtyard, public space. It counts as public space. That's how it's been treated in other applications. So my position is, if you don't give consideration on this issue, you are indeed violating my client's constitutional rights, among not following your ordinance, which is a little less than clear. So that's kind of where we are. I'm asking you to consider all of these issues. And I know it's not cut and dry. It's not simple. It's not clean. But I'm asking you to consider all of these considerations. And to me, principally, that the issue I just mentioned, plus the fact that this is a good area to have for the residents. I walked by it. I know how these projects work. You want something like this associated with a project like this, in resolving this issue in the way that I've suggested that we should.
Let me respond to that with this thought, that the letter this afternoon asked for a waiver, partial waiver from your Saldo. And the wording is, we're proposing to dedicate a certain area as recreational land, and we agree to pay the fee in lieu for the remaining 3.14%. That is less than the 5% for the, but with an offset. He wants an offset for the sanitary sewer work that the developer performed, as well as if the borough decides to place a pump station on a corner of their property. I suggest that if the board is indeed of a mind that we don't want to grant the waiver, that the developer has an opportunity in the future to come back and talk to you about the sanitary sewer project potential offset and pump house potential offset.
Question. Thank you. Mr. Nagel, you mentioned this parcel was always on the plan, and it was always part of the project. If you knew you couldn't build on it, right? Try to read your client's mind. What was he going to do with 17 by 200 if he wasn't going to build on it? And was that in his mind, that he was going to try to flip it as fee in lieu?
I don't know the answer to that question, Mr. Flynn. I really don't, but I can tell you that the planning commission, it had more landscape. It was a landscaped area on the plan at one point in time during preliminary approval. And it went in front of the planning commission, and the planning commission said, we'd much rather see that area be open with some benches in it so it can be available for people to utilize. There's not a lot of green space in that area of the borough. You're bringing all these people in. They're going to need a place to walk their dogs, to go out and hang out in a grass area. That's the perfect place for it. Can you make that change to your plan? So we made that change to the plan. And then this issue came up, and we started looking at it. And I had this issue come up in other applications where I had an opportunity to really analyze your ordinances, to think about the legal issues and the implications of them. And when we were looking at all that in conjunction, it seemed obvious how to deal with it. We had done that in collaboration with the borough on another project over at the Mitch's redevelopment. Although in that case, it was on the same side of the street, not across the street, but nevertheless, it worked out well. We agreed that I maintained my legal position on the constitutionality and the interpretation of the borough's ordinance, but then in the alternative, as I've done here, asked for a waiver as an effort to resolve the issue. So that's the best way I can answer your question, Mr. Flynn.
So I have a question. I guess my question is, why wouldn't your client just build on the property he has, build on Rubenstein, put the green space on the property that he's building on? Why take a property across a busy street that you're not even giving to the borough? So it's basically still your property, which means in a few years, that property might morph into something completely different from what we're talking about now with no accountability. So I guess my question is, why, if people are talking about walking their dogs across a busy street where they turn and come down Market Street and turn up that street, and church people park on Sundays on that street, and it's a busy street, why wouldn't they just do it on their own, the property that he has? And then like our vice president said, he could build a house across the street or on the other property that he's talking about. And he could do something actually sustainable and good for the community and put the green space on the property. Why put the courtyard that's inaccessible to the public? Why don't you put the courtyard where it is accessible to the public?
Yeah, that's a fair question, Mayor. On the other side of the street where the building is, there is a very large courtyard already in the building. So that they have that there on that side. On this side where my client already owns the property, and as we went through the process with the Planning Commission, this became an obvious choice for what we're proposing it for. And it made sense to everybody when we discussed it, and to the point where the heavier landscaping that was there, we were asked to remove that so we could put benches in and make it more like what we've offered it for. And in terms of what this would be available for in the future, if the borough accepts this, if council accepts this proposal, this would be restricted so that it can only be used as we're proposing it in perpetuity. So that's not an issue.
Again, my question was, why not put the courtyard accessible? So if you're talking about accessibility for the public, you have a courtyard that you're putting in a building that won't be accessible to the public. If the ordinance reads that it's accessible to the public, then why don't you put the courtyard where it is actually accessible to the public? So you're not taking another piece of property that's not adjacent and not directly across the street. It's across the street, but it's not close. And I can't imagine that neighbors in the block want this to be just used as a dog walking park, but that's what my imagination forecasts. I don't see that. I don't see that happening as the neighbors being very pleased with that concept and that idea. Why couldn't, but my point is, and my question is, why can't you make that courtyard available and accessible? Since you say it meets the ordinance, why doesn't it become an area that is accessible to the public?
The courtyard,
Why can't you make it that?
the courtyard that's in the building? That's not the way these buildings work, Mayor, and that's not what your ordinance requires. If you look at your ordinance, it shows the courtyard for an apartment complex like this as being credited as public space, even though it's not accessible to the general public. It's accessible to all the folks who live in the building. That's how your ordinance reads. That's how it was designed. That's how it's been provided. And this is in addition to that, so it's still a benefit.
I think that's not exactly how it reads, but that's how it was interpreted on one project, which you remind us of frequently, which I said the other day, which is why I'm concerned that once you start, council, making the property not a part of the property they're building in, you've opened up the door for this to happen continually and for you to be reminded continually that you've done it once and you need to do it again.
And I answered that the other night, Mayor, with the legal fact that if Borough Council grants a waiver, nobody can rely on it. I can't walk here and rely on it. You granted the waiver in this case, so you have to grant it in that case because the law determines that every case where a waiver is considered is different. It's like a variance. So if you grant a variance, it's a unique case. That doesn't mean you have to grant that variance or that waiver in another case that comes before you. It doesn't work that way.
You're exactly right. It doesn't work that way.
So can we get,
Let me come back to one point that was made. Mr. Nagel was asked about the note on the plan. I realize it preceded him, but with the help of the borough engineer, was able to call up the note. It's interesting language. A fee in lieu of the rec area is to be provided. In addition to the fee, parcel 15474 on the opposite side of Franklin Street is to be left as green space and deeded as such. That says to me
Well,
that
that's pretty
in the
clear to me.
prelim plan,
Yeah,
they agreed to
you're right.
both.
well, I think we'll do that. Does anybody have any comment from that it sounds like it was already proposed in the preliminary plan, both for the full fee in lieu and that parcel. So I'm good with that.
Pretty clear to me.
And I think what we're looking for is the direction, is the council of a mind to grant the waiver? Sounds like based upon the questions, the answer is no.
Is there anyone here that's thinking okay?
And that allows me to complete the resolution for tomorrow night.
So it sounds like we're not of a mind. I don't know do I open it up to public comment at this point in time?
You're not taking a vote, so it's not necessary. It's a workshop. You're discussing it amongst yourselves and with whatever input.
Ms. Simone?
I just have one question about the parcel. You said it was always part of the plan. Was it purchased, this rectangle here, was it purchased at the same time as the Rubenstein's property? Or was it purchased afterwards?
I don't know the answer to that question right standing here.
Ms. Simone? The question is, Mr. Belwar, can you read that again so everybody understands exactly what you said? Because what I heard was we shouldn't be talking about this.
A fee in lieu of the recreation area is to be provided. In addition to the fee, parcel 15-474 on the opposite side of Franklin Street is to be left as green space and deeded as such to be maintained and used by the proposed apartment building.
Okay.
That ruined my comment.
All right, so so we're putting on the agenda then for tomorrow for you to write up the resolution to not accept the waiver and to accept that as written in the preliminary, the fee in lieu plus the parcel.
Right.
That is what we'll be putting. And then we'll talk about the other stuff another time that you'd brought up earlier regarding the sewer fees and stuff. I think there's a little more research and that has to be
That's
done.
fair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That's what we're asking for. So, Lillian just asked the question, just to make sure we're all clear. That's the full fee in lieu. Mr. Belwar, that's the full 325 fee in lieu. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay. Direct solicitor to schedule a public hearing on January 15th, 2025, amending Chapter 97 Saldo and Chapter 112 zoning relative to height of building. And this was related to when council directed the planning commission to recommend a change to building height regulations in Chapter 97 and Chapter 112.
Right. So this came from the Planning Commission. One of the issues that they felt needed clarification, as you know, how you define building height is an issue that's currently on appeal to the Commonwealth Court. So to hopefully avoid future interpretation issues and ambiguity, the Planning Commission worked with our office to propose amendments to both Chapter 97, which is subdivision land development ordinance, as well as your zoning, because both of those ordinances do deal with the concept of building height. And so we have for you proposed definition changes to both, as I said, Chapter 97 and Chapter 112. The version that you have that was sent into the packet, the definition of grade plane was not, it should be the same for both. It should be the same in your saldo and in zoning. So it was right on the front page, but on the second page, it didn't get, we've gone through this with the planning, there's several meetings to get to the right definition for this. Many different ways we go about this. So that was just a mistake in not making them consistent. So the version that would be, if you move it to go forward, the definition of grade plane will be identical and it'll be exactly as it is on the front page of the ordinance. And it will actually refer to an attachment. That attachment is labeled as Exhibit A to the ordinance, but it will be both an appendix to saldo and an appendix to zoning, because we think it's important to have a photo, a sketch that everybody can sort of look at and say, okay, we get it. We understand what the words say by looking at the sketch. So again, the purpose of the ordinance is just make it very clear where you determine the grade plane, what the finished ground is. So in one of the applications, more than one application actually, developers were sort of elevating what the grade plane was by building structures, retaining walls, things like that. So this makes it clear that you can't do that. It can't be an artificially elevated grade plane. So I think this does make it clear. Jim Cherry, Tom West, Tom Comita, and Tom Esty from my office worked closely together to get this, we think, in a good position. When I first read the first draft, I said, I'm not sure this is clearing up the ambiguity. I think that a lay person has to read this, to be honest, and be able to understand how you determine the height of a building. And I think we have it there now. So I would recommend that if you're happy with this, that this move forward to Chester County Planning Commission and then ultimately to a hearing probably sometime in January.
And as you can see, the Smart Growth Committee got full explanation, and we were also very comfortable and thought it was clear, and they did a great job at creating that clarity. So we recommended it. Those of us who were here. Any questions? No? All right, so we can put that on consent for tomorrow? Or no, we are, putting on consent to direct the solicitor tomorrow. All right, motion to approve HARB applications. Again, these were street signs and carriage house renovation. Again, we went through them with Sally at the Smart Growth meeting, and we all felt that these were good updates or good changes. And so the Smart Growth Committee does recommend that we approve those and put this on the consent agenda. All right. All right, the ACT Committee.
Yeah, so the Act Committee had one item to discuss, and this was to motion to direct the solicitor to amend the Transportation Advisory Committee ordinance. The reason for this was while we discussed recruitment and composition for the committee, we left a couple details out. There are instructions in there in terms of the composition, but we needed to add two pieces in there that we had discussed and just did not make it into the ordinance as it is now. So we need to amend it, and that is to include a liaison member. That was discussed, and this liaison member would be somebody that would be a member of both the TAC or the Transportation Advisory Committee and the Rail Restoration Committee, so that we, those two committees are talking to each other. The other piece of this was to make sure that we had a majority membership of borough residents. Ideally, it would be great to have a majority, but also some diversity across the different wards. We'll see if we can get that or not, but we needed to make sure that we, if we're having 5 to 7, then 3 to 4 would be residents of the borough. So those two pieces are going to go into a revision, and then we'll have to have another hearing. That was it. It was a committee recommendation of 3-0, so I'd like to move that to the consent agenda.
All right, any questions from anyone? No? All right, we'll put that on. Any comments from anyone who wants to apply from the community? No? That's what we need, applications.
Can I just ask for clarification? So when you do that and the motion is for me to approve or the solicitor to prepare it, it's not to get it ready for hearing, it's just to come back to you with that ordinance. So your committee will look at it again in December and say, we're ready to move this forward to a hearing. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
thanks for the clarification.
All right, Dana, you got that? Claire? Okay, great. All right, moving on to the parking committee.
The first one is a motion to approve resolution amending parking permit area D. The issue was changes to residential parking permit to all for one non-residential parking permit for an employee at a law firm. No guest passes will be given. If the property use or owner changes, resolution should be modified to remove permission. Mr. Motel, the owner at 330 North High Street, may seek permission via petition signatures from all property owners on High Street block. If approved, the entire area will become D permit parking for 3-hour parking restrictions will be removed. This was difficult. So there's a current owner. He has a law office and rental units above it. He had an agreement where he wasn't in a permit area, but he could still buy permits that was never really written down or recorded. It got very confusing. He was asking for permission to keep the arrangement the way it was, but it didn't make any sense for moving forward. So we tried to move it into something that was tangible. If he wants to make his area a permit area, there is a method for doing that that does not involve just showing up to a council meeting and requesting it. And that's set, like just follow it. So that's what this says to me.
Can I ask a question about it though? So when you say law office employee, what happens if the law office goes away and it's another office? Does it have to be restricted to a law office? Or can it be any office? Because the way this resolution is written, it says law office employee. So I would read that to say that if the law office goes away, the permit goes away. Is it meant to be just for specifically a law office? Or could it be any office that's in that space?
Can you talk to that, Monica?
Okay, so if we could, the resolution that you have, I think it should just say the office. Right? Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Does anybody have an issue with this? Want to talk about it anymore? Okay. Committee recommendation was 2-0. Move on to the second one. Discuss parking plan for Hotel Indigo in the Chestnut Street Garage. Hotel Indigo is requesting 25 signs to be placed on the second floor of the Chestnut Street Garage, along with wayfinding signage at a rate of $125 per month per lease. They are also confirming use of 30 unsigned spaces at a rate of $60 a day. I thought that was $90 a day.
I got the copy of the parking agreement yesterday after 5 p.m. and I didn't have a chance to look at it until late this afternoon. I did speak with Ramsey probably about 5 p.m. tonight. I'm not satisfied with the way the parking agreement is written. I think that there are definitely some changes that need to be made, but Ramsey is comfortable and had asked that if you're at least in agreement to give them or allow them to have the 25 spaces on the second floor and to sign those spaces in it, in the time frame that they need to in order for their opening, that the agreement will work on for the next month. But she does want to make sure that we can go back, if council's comfortable, with acknowledging that 25 of the 55 spaces that they're entitled to under the settlement agreement can be reserved with signage on the second floor. But we would like to continue to work on the parking agreement.
So we're only talking about 25 spaces with signage. We're not talking about the other spaces.
Well, the agreement they'll come back to you is for all 55 spaces because they are entitled to be provided passes. The way the settlement agreement, and I'm going to read you the exact language, says that they shall purchase 55 monthly passes on an ongoing monthly basis in the Chestnut Street parking garage. They shall be entitled to the use of the same for so long as the new hotel and retail building is in existence. The borough and the developer may at any time make alternative parking arrangements by agreement. So it's not major changes you want to make to the agreement. It's just that I do think it needs to be, there's some tweaking. For example, it's a 2-year term. We talked about why is it a 2-year term? Some of the other language that Ramsey would like to see some changes to. So I know, and Mr. Nagel's here, I think, representing his office prepared the agreement. I think there's some time sensitivity to making sure they can do the signs for the 25 spaces. And so if you could, I think the ask of Ramsey is that at least for purposes of trying to coordinate with the developer and their hotel opening, to agree that they can have those 25 spaces signed on the second story of the garage. And one of the questions I asked was, has anybody identified where those 25 spaces are? Okay. And so I think that should be attached to the agreement as an exhibit to identify if that's where you guys are willing to put those 25 spaces.
And from our perspective, I think what Ms. Camp is proposing makes sense.
Monica,
It's Ramsey okay with, like, has Ramsey seen those 25 spaces and she's okay? Okay.
She has.
Monica.
I'm here too.
Hi, Ramsey.
Hi. Yeah, I'm fine with it. Like Kristen said, I just want to make sure that the hotel can move forward with signage appropriate while we still whittle out the little details on the agreement, if everyone's comfortable with that.
So what we're asking tonight, please correct me if I'm wrong, is to approve moving forward with 25 signed spaces at the rate of $125 a month.
That would be fine.
And we're not asking for anything more right now.
That's correct. And the $125 is because that's what your current rate is. So I don't want it to be set that, oh, you only said 125, because the way the agreement will be worded is those spaces will be whatever Borough Council's resolution reflects it. But as of right now, it's 125.
Yes, thank you very much.
Great.
We're good. Okay.
So the question of whether the other spaces are 60 or 90 is not relevant at this point?
That's correct. That'll come back to you next month, probably for the full agreement to be dealing with all 55 spaces.
Are we comfortable with this?
Daryl's got some questions.
Daryl Cook, South Walnut Street. Will the space mark 26 be removed from the attachment?
I would think it's the space 16. Well, no, they're not.
Well, wait, I think Daryl, those aren't necessarily counting 25. I think those are just space numbers.
That's correct.
Like if you just count like that says 26, but that's not the 26th space. Like if you look, there's no like 9, 10, 11, that stuff.
Correct.
But thank you.
Okay. The third is motion to approve a draft ordinance 10445 and resolution handicap parking and schedule a public hearing for December 18th, 2024. These are changes to the handicap parking regulations and policies. It also includes modifications and removal of other special parking zones. So this is about cleaning things up and making it so that we don't have to come to council for every handicap ad. If it's a legal request for a handicap ad, it's a legal request for a handicap ad.
Yes, if I can jump in real quick, because I helped Ramsey with this. So 10445, I think I know that section in my sleep because every month you have an amendment to it. And I know that's time consuming for your staff, time consuming for you, and it's expensive to advertise. So Ramsey had the great idea that we pull those handicap parking spaces out of your ordinance and we do it by resolution. I did check and I do believe that that's a lawful way to do it. So we had to make a different section. 104-45 will just be, there's a couple spaces that you have that are university spaces or police spaces. So that's the only thing that 104-45 will do today is those special spaces. 104-45.1 will be a new section, and it is basically your handicap parking regulations. It tells you how you go about to get a handicap parking spot, but the actual spaces are in a resolution. So now when somebody comes to the parking committee and requests that, you can amend your resolution. You don't have to amend your ordinance.
No questions? Any questions? No? No. Daryl, any question? No, you're good. Okay. All right, let's put that on consent.
And the fourth one is a motion to award the RFP for Westchester Borough Garage Management to Colonial Parking. We sat through interviews and decided that Colonial made the most sense, and that's where we are.
All right. Any, no questions? All right, we'll put that on consent too.
Thank
Fifth-
you.
The fifth is a motion to approve special event parking fee locations. This is about the fact that we have the kiosks system now. So we can do special event parking not only in the garages, but also in our lots. So that's something we're able to do because we added the kiosks. Did I say that right?
Any questions from anyone?
I just have one question, and it has to do with the ability to reserve a spot in advance. Will that also be part of this solution here or potentially down the road?
That was discussed quite a bit in the garage management conversation, and I don't know how that's going to translate out to the flat lots. Do you? Yeah, I think that's a later development.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
I think we can do that eventually, but I think it will increase enforcement needs. So, but right now we can do it without the reservations as is.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So, was there any other question? I had a question. I think if it's my understanding, you lowered the special event parking from $20 an event to $10 across the board. Is that a correct statement?
I believe that's correct.
So would it be appropriate to suggest that since we've lowered that amount, that we keep the total amount for the borough to offset costs of the special event?
Well, all right, I think I
Because right
understand.
now, I think we share it
How much does
sometimes.
it cost at the metered, or how much do we tend to make at the metered spaces off an event? I think that's where you're getting at. Like, do people pay the meter and it ends up being like $20 because they're not paying the $15 or the $10 event fee?
No, that's not what I'm getting
No?
at.
No?
Because you're already going to make it even across the board with your metered parking, because you can.
Are you saying don't split the flat lots?
Yeah, in the past, you've split some of that parking and given some of the revenue to other, like bid, I think. I think if we reduce the price, then we need to keep the entire $10 fee that we're collecting to offset costs for all of the events going forward.
So Mayor, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that was only for the garages was the $10 fee, correct?
Well, we're changing that
Right.
to include the flat lots. So the mayor is just saying, can we clarify that the garages will remain split, but the flat lots will not?
I am not suggesting the
No,
garages
she's
be
not, she's
split.
saying lowering the cost means we're not sharing the
We've
expenses.
lowered the costs across the board. Is that correct? Is Ramsey still with us?
Yeah, the Christmas parade was $20. All other events have been $10, and we've only ever charged that in the garages. So the intention of this was, I guess, the decision previously was that special event fees will be $10 across the board, including the Christmas parade. And then I was asking to include the streets and the lots in this to recoup more expenses, since we are doing, Barb presented a cost sharing fee. And
Yeah.
so I thought this would help with the reduction of the overhead.
So I think this is like to my question of because if we're usually making $5 on those spaces, not a special event fee, and then not sharing, are we actually recouping more money if we change those spaces to $10 but sharing? I think that's what we need to understand is are we better off or worse off? Because your concern is that we're putting ourselves into a position that we're worse off, is what I'm getting.
Well, my position is, why are we sharing, period? Why aren't we keeping the revenue to offset borough costs, period? That's my only position. Whatever revenue you decide you're going to collect, $10 or $5, or whether it's across for parking or garages or whatever it might be, although I thought it was $10 across. So I'm not sure if it's $20 or not for the Christmas parade this year. I'm suggesting that we keep the entire fee, the entire time, the entire years going forward. Am I clear?
I just want to,
Why are we sharing? Why-
I'm going to clarify why we're sharing.
Yes.
We have routinely been asked for some exception and given the money back over and over and over again. So this is to prevent that request and just share up front. Let it be known what the share will be. And if we want to specify that it is the garages only, we can do that. I don't know when we do that or where we do that, but that's possible. But as of right now, the sharing was a way of encouraging event planning with other partners, including the bid. This is we were constantly giving the money back anyway.
Yeah, well,
And we've raised the public works costs going forward.
so Mayor, what Barbara did a great job of when we made these decisions was she showed us a comparison of this year, what we would be deciding and what people would have paid in the past. And what we found was if we were transparent with the costs and shared the parking, we would still recruit, as opposed to going through the dance every time somebody had an event. The dance is over, no more dances. But we're still getting the same amount plus possibly even, as events get bigger, even a little bit more based off of the way that we've calculated these costs and recouping the actual cost. Barbara did an extensive analysis on what things actually cost for us. And it was and that's the other thing, it's transparent. We're recouping our costs and we're creating an atmosphere where we can have some strong events that bring people to our towns and to have a great time in our towns.
Yes, and I would agree. I would agree. She did do an excellent job, and we were transparent and lowered the police costs because I think before they were picked by previous people and previous councils that were arbitrary. So now you've done that. We're moving forward. Again, I'm suggesting since in addition to that, we've lowered our special events fees from.
We have not.
Cut them.
We did not lower the special events fees.
They
We
didn't go
only
from 1
lowered,
to 10 to
we
2.
only lowered the Christmas parade garage fees.
Okay. And we're splitting that with who?
What, the Christmas parade? That's,
We're-
let's change.
We're
Let's give Miss Leonti, I mean,
Are we-
we went over this.
Can I just provide clarification? So
Thank
we
you.
did agree that the special event fee for the garages would be $10 for all events.
That's what I understood.
My suggestion is, since there is a lot of discussion here, that we could put together a cost analysis on what we're actually making with the meters, because I know what we were making with the garages, but I don't have a good feel for what we're doing with the meters. So if you would be comfortable, I could put that together and we could discuss it next month.
Can I just say, a lot of these events are on Sundays when parking is free, so we would be better off if we did do the special event fee, just as a guess.
I like that. Thank you, God. That's it. I think if it makes everybody comfortable, to have Barb do the analysis for us and bring it back next month, I think that should be no harm, no foul. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you might take a look at a couple of events.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll
few more
talk with
magic.
Ramsey when she's back. We'll discuss what would be the best way to tackle this. But I think just for transparency's sake, so that there is good data to make a comparison and make a decision, I think that this would be the best way forward.
One of the things about the meters is a lot of these events make the meters not usable, except in the lots. So that is just to know that not, you're going to see what the real numbers are, but like we should be aware that quite often the meters are not even a part of this.
I'm at the kiosks. With data on that.
So was it 10 or 20 for this year?
$10
Okay,
across all events.
that's what I thought, but then I thought I heard Ramsey say something about 20.
That was prior.
That would be great if we could discuss that.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, sure.
All right, thank you. So yes, Dana, we'll move it back to parking for next month. Thank you. All right, Public Works.
Here we go. Mr. Williams, I'm going to need you because you know the acronyms, and I don't remember them for number one. If you can grab a microphone back there, or if you want to walk up. Motion to approve submitting the draft to Goose Creek, PRP, and the TMDL to the Pennsylvania Department Environmental Protection for approval. So you know all the acronyms, and people at home don't.
Actually, my first draft of these slides, the first slide said WTF is a PRP, and I thought that might be a little edgy. PRP is a pollution reduction plan. TMDL is total maximum daily load. These are two separate documents. They're a very high level plan that we need to submit to DEP. We're actually updating a plan that was submitted, I think, and approved by DEP in 2018. And it outlines at a very, very high level project location and project types and the stormwater quality benefits that will accrue from doing those projects to meet the DEP mandate for pollutant reductions in Goose Creek. We have to do the same exercise for the rest of the borough next year, but over on that side, we only have a PRP. PRP, the pollution reduction plan, focuses on sediment reduction. TMDL focuses on phosphorus reduction. So I can go through these again if you want, or.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Thank you, because.
Well, yeah, I have some comments.
Okay.
So I did watch the presentation that you did at the Public Works meeting. I mean, from what I saw, I mean, this plan is, there's a lot of potential issues with it, for sure, with regards to potentially having a basin on somebody's yard. And I'm still not completely bought into, even though you did the little turning radius and all that stuff, I'm still not completely bought into where all the bump outs are proposed.
Sure.
But I do comprehend the idea that this is just try to get a pile of money from or some approval to try to, get things moving, and that there's a longer version of an approval process that would need to happen to actually get some of these things moving. And as long as that's the case and that we have future input, because I've got some, that I would be okay with it. But I want to make sure that everybody's clear. This is not the plan. This is a plan to kind of just get things rolling so a real plan can be created.
Yes.
Because, yeah.
It's a draft going to DEP. They say you're on the right track. We go back, we noodle it some more. We do a full public input process. We come back probably this time next year and say, here's our fully baked plan. Thank you for bringing up the private property question, because that came up last week. There is one project proposed here on private property. It's basically a retrofit of a probably 70s, 80s era stormwater basin on an industrial property between Bernard and Union Street. There is 3 acres of impervious surface flowing into that basin right now. And the reason that we think it's a decent idea is that property currently pays $11,000 to the year through the stream protection fee. And if we are able to collaborate with them on a project there, that could greatly reduce, if not eliminate, that bill. So they have a strong financial incentive to work with us on that project. And that's the only project proposed on private property. And there was a reason we were so bold to do that.
What 100 block was that, may I ask?
What's that?
What 100 block is that?
500 block, I believe. It's the one east of the ones that have already been developed into townhomes, but because of Davis Oil and the underground soil contamination, that one can't be redeveloped into residential. That's our understanding, at least the majority of it. Because the first question was, well, is this going to be the next 50 townhomes in Westchester? The answer is almost certainly not because of that.
Any other, oh, we've got comment from the residents.
Are there any chances to convert the High Street project south of Neal Street that took 6 parking spaces to green space?
At this point in time, I don't think so. And we can, Daryl, we can talk about what 6 spots you're talking about too, just. All right, so I think we're moving that one to consent at this point.
All right, moving on to number 2, motion to approve the Taylor Run stream restoration bid. The Public Works presented us with the opportunity. The green team from Maryland is $249,028, and they met all the criteria, and the RCO, they're ready to move forward. They're 1 hour away, and the committee recommended their approval.
I just have one comment, and I don't know, I mean, Mr. Flynn, we were on the Finance Committee together last year, and since these are all bids, right? Would they be, and I understand they're in the purviews underneath Public Works, wouldn't it, I mean, you could also make the argument that they could also be part of the Finance Committee, correct? Because they are bids over certain amounts, and I think, Barb, we've discussed that too.
You have to get clarification on that. I don't know that question.
So I think traditionally, the bids have been put on the Public Works agendas, but I think that personally, I think anything that involves money, I do believe that that should be on finance. So I think it could go hand in hand.
I agree. I don't know if Ms. Camp has any comment about that.
It's really just your policy decision on which committee you think should be reviewing it. I mean, I think the details of the project, if that's, that's something more that your Public Works Committee is probably looking into the project itself. But as far as the finance of it, if that's something you want to go to the Finance Committee, I think that's perfectly fine too.
Then the chair, I recommend that the balance of the 8 of these be moved to finance and not approved tonight.
So you want to move them all to the Finance
Yeah,
Committee?
why
for
not?
next-
If
for
you
next-
want.
Well,
Well, I mean,
but can you do that?
Number 9 was a rejection of the bid.
Can you do that though with some of these bids? I don't know what the time frame is on these bids. I know that some of the bids have time frames for when the borough has to act.
I think, Mr. Flynn, I think for now, but I believe going forward, that they
It
should,
should go to you first in finance.
I think for final approval in finance, go to you for the plans and then approval for the bids.
Public Works is going to come up. Mr. Edwards is going to make a comment of it. It seems to me like you're chasing your tail, but go ahead.
When it comes to bids, especially with these public works projects, there's not only the technical aspects, but there's also the contract issues that also are part of it. There's there's usually a set of plans and then a project manual that has all kinds of conditions and terms and it's called a front end. It has contracts, and that's something that Public Works and engineers would know best. So I don't know how you all are going to decide. I would just say that Public Works should be actively involved with these bids.
All right, well, let me throw this out there. My understanding, it's like the fire truck. Or if we need a new fire truck, the fire company comes to the public safety meeting and says, we need a new fire truck. And I know this. And then 2 hours later, when we get to the finance meeting, they say, we need a new fire truck and it's going to cost $1 million. And then we approve it in the finance. So so I feel like that's the same path that we should follow with these as well. The Public Works understands what we want to do.
Mhm.
And then the finance confirms at the end, we're going to pay this much for it. So
Right.
I'm good with
And I
that.
think maybe also that's something that simplified in the Act Committee.
We should
Now-
discuss in it. I think we could take this conversation and put it on the
Yeah, I
Act
think
Committee
we should
agenda.
Put that out there, Mr.
Yeah.
For future, because I think Ms. Shimoni made it.
She did, yeah.
Well, let me clarify, if I may just add this. There's two types of contracts. One's a procurement contract where you're just buying something like a fire truck. And then there's a public works project where you're actually doing work, like a site, developing a site, building a building, things like that. So there's two categories, and procurement, they're kind of different. So please consider that.
Well, what they're trying, what Mr. Simone actually made a pretty good point. It's just double work. Once Public Works agrees to how we move through the minutia of what has to be done.
Yeah.
And then the next night it goes to finance.
Mhm.
And finance says, yep,
Yep.
I guess it makes sense to do it. And just like the fire truck.
That'll
So,
work.
yeah,
That'll work.
we have 8 others of these.
Well, okay, so I think Brian's proposal was not necessarily, let's jam these up tonight. But to that point, do we feel comfortable with the fire truck scenario? Or do we feel that we need to take it back to the Act Committee to make a final decision and proposal that could take a month or so?
He said there's two different types of, he just said there's two different types of,
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
so in
I
this-
heard that, but I wasn't quite sure I agreed with that philosophy.
I mean, in the example of a fire truck, I mean, whoever prepared the documents, whether it was the fire department or a consultant, I mean, they should be involved, whatever committee that is. And then there's also the financial component like you're talking about. So, and that's not Public Works, but anything that involves Public Works, I feel strongly it should be going to Public Works, because there's could be some questions, that only Public Works can answer.
and if they're bids or not, right?
I'm sorry.
If they're bids.
I think that's the whole question
bids,
for
right.
Brian. It's all about the dollars of the bids that he's
Correct.
concerned about from a financial standpoint.
All the remaining 8 are all bids.
Mhm. Yeah.
So some of them have to do with data, some of them have to do with.
Yeah.
Restoration, that's labor and material.
Mhm.
So, and next one, number 3, is tree planting. So that's labor and material.
Mhm.
Tree, plants, that's labor. Custodial services, that's labor.
Mhm.
Traffic signals is material. Signage is material. Lights need to be good, that's labor material. So, it's, I think it's it. The finance department wants to make sure that.
Mhm. Oh, it's so good. Of course. I think we should go over them tonight.
I just want to add one point that while at Public Works, you are agreeing to approve the bids, we wouldn't necessarily come before finance for those because the bids have already been awarded. So with the new changes to the purchasing policy, the only things that we would be bringing to finance are anything that has not been budgeted or approved for, by council. So we typically wouldn't bring any bid requests to the finance department to approve purchasing. So I think that's where the difference between, the public, where the kind of the difference between Public Works and finance lies. If that gives you, any clarification there. So
You're saying
for
if
instance,
it's already in the
this
budget.
Taylor Run Stream restoration bid, I would not be coming before finance within 6 months asking for approval to pay that, because you would be approving that tomorrow night. You've already given the approval to move ahead with the project. So therefore, you've already given approval that we will be paying the bill.
You're saying for these particular ones?
Correct, yes.
Oh, yes, yes, that's understood.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
wanted to put that out there,
Yes.
that I think that's where the distinction between what goes on Public Works and what should be on Finance.
But you're saying, let's say we weren't even talking about these tonight.
Mhm.
Are you saying that if last week you had the tree planting bid,
Mhm.
right, and you went to Public Works, you're saying in general, you wouldn't bring tree planting bids to finance because it's already somewhere in the budget that we approved?
Yeah, and that's part of the purchasing policy, that any bids that have been awarded by council, we don't have to come before Finance for approval of items greater than $10,000.
Can you just clarify the comparison to the fire truck? Was the fire truck not approved?
Well, because the fire truck, the reason why we would have to come to Finance for that is because that's not a bid. That's just their request to go out because it's been a budgeted capital item, but those types of services are not special. So therefore, they're normally purchased through co-stars. You wouldn't put them out to bid. So we would have to come before Finance because the item would be over $10,000. So what I'm trying to say is the difference here is that a lot of these items are being awarded through a public bid that you're approving. So if you're approving the bid, you're approving that we're going to buy it and we're going to purchase it, and we have the authority to pay that without coming for a second approval. And I think that's where the distinction between Public Works and Finance is.
But if Public Works Committee just recommends an approval and the following night it goes to Finance Committee, it hasn't been approved yet. The approval happens this week.
Yeah, you would be approving it tomorrow night.
Yeah, so again, these aside, like pretend these aren't even here. If you came to Public Works with something one night, they're not approving it, they're recommending an approval. So it's
Correct.
still not outside of, it hasn't been approved so that you can't approve it in finance. That's where I'm getting confused. that
I
you're
think the
saying-
difference is that these are bids. So if you're awarding the bid, in essence, you're saying that,
But they're not awarding the bid. They're just recommending that the following week we approve the bid. So I think, yeah. If we, for these, yeah. But in the future.
Right.
Well, I don't think Brian's asking them to be sent to finance after tomorrow night. He's saying for future ones, why don't they come to finance first?
Yeah, what he's saying is that when Mr. Edwards brings it up, like 2 weeks ago, last month, the committee agrees that that's a legitimate bid. And what Mr. McGinnis wants now is not only be on the Public Works approval, it goes over to finance to make sure that the money's approved.
Okay, so at this point, I think it does make sense to go back to the ACT committee because we are getting into the weeds here. So the answer is yes, let's go back to ACT. But yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
Right, so.
I might need some input from our finance and public works director on this, though.
All right, so we're looking at the number 2, motion to approve Taylor Run stream restoration bid for $249,028 to Green Team Industries. Any objections? All right, guess that's consent. Motion to approve the 2025 tree planting bid. We have a new company going to be doing it, All Seasons Landscaping.
Are they going to show up?
This was pretty much worked through with Mr. Dunn, the tree guy, setting the table for that one. So not for the Taylor Run, yeah, but for the tree planting, we were having year after year problems with the people showing up and not doing their job. So what Mr. Dunn did was he went out and selected a group of qualified bidders, and we selected from the qualified bidders.
And let me just add, we advertised legally before Kristen has a heart attack. So, and let me just add, our current contractor did plant trees, so, for the fall here. So.
Jeff, can you move that down so we see what the overall price is? Is it 140? Mr. Edwards, is that 146, 722, 38, correct?
Well, we want the first one where the total's 100,000.
100,000, okay.
And one thing to add is we improved the technical specifications. The prices are higher this year because the preparation with tree planting is better. So the mortality rate should go down. Fewer trees planted, higher, better mortality rate.
And the anticipation is spring.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. Did you mention that we did get planning for the fall, or
We did
not? Okay.
No, we did. They
And they
did.
satisfied the contracts? Was that this completely
Yeah,
satisfied?
they did what they had to do. We're going to go out there and inspect what they did, but I don't have any concerns. So just, it all worked out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Consent for that one for the tree planting. Motion to approve the 2025 tree maintenance bid. We're going to retain the person that we have this year. Is it Hogan?
Horgan.
Horgan. They did an excellent job.
Can we go back to the list?
And whoops.
The list of the bids that we were looking at, I think, was on the first. Not the.
For Horgan.
Yeah, wasn't there a list of all of the companies that that had all the different bids, right?
It's the next
The
one.
first thing we looked at.
It's the bid tabulation I think you're looking for. Yep, that's it. Two companies.
Two companies, yeah.
And not quite what I was looking for the first page.
Oh, the first page would just be my recommendation, I think. It's part of a memo. Yeah.
Like what's the total? What's the total for this 2025 tree maintenance?
Okay. Great question. Many of these contracts are on an as-needed basis. Okay. So going back to finance, we work with a budget. It's our job to make sure we don't go over budget. And so these are just unit costs, and we'll just use it as needed. Especially with tree maintenance. I mean, most work is non-routine, emergencies, requests that come in, problems. So there isn't going to be a total number for you.
Any questions? All right, consent on that one. Number 5, motion to approve the 2025 custodial service bid. And once again, the incumbent was recommended by Public Works at $47,940 per year.
Price is a little higher from last year, but they're also going to be cleaning the parking garages, working with Ramsey. And so we'll probably split costs a little bit here.
All right, any questions? All right. Number 6, motion to approve 2025 traffic signal maintenance bid. Is that Lenai?
This one is signal service.
Single service, okay.
Prices did not change much from last year.
Just the itemized cost, call them as needed, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Any questions?
Well, if we have problems with our traffic signals that are of any kind, like there's a traffic controller, a box that's there, and sometimes things, electronics may burn out or something, and it causes a problem with the traffic signal. We'll call them, and they'll go out there, diagnose the problem, fix the problem, and they'll keep our traffic signals running like they're supposed to.
Actually, I have a question about this too. The buttons that you push to allow you to cross do they maintain those too, or replace?
Well, they maintain the system at least, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Donnie, understand? Yeah, I know. But I mean, we handle what we can. If there's something simple like restarting a traffic signal, we might not call them to save money. But anything that's complex, we would call them to do it.
Thanks.
All right, no questions. 6 can go in consent. Number 7, motion to approve the 2025 street signage bid. That's a materials bid, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
All the different signs.
Is that,
The alleys now?
I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, have we not installed signs for alleys in the past?
I don't notice them.
Yeah.
Are there signs for alleys?
I have a sign on my alley.
By request.
For alleys is by request? How many can you request? I
Well,
got a few.
I will say as a matter of practice, we try to say yes as much as possible. So if there's requests, as long as it doesn't bust our budget, we're gonna do it.
Okay. All right, any problems? All right.
So this is 3,000 versus the other bid was 17,000?
Yeah, it's kind of a big difference, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah.
But again, it's an as needed, basically.
All right, number 8, motion to approve 2025 landscaping bid. Now, I had a question about the bid, the name itself, Andrews Lawn Landscaping, and I got it confused with another company, and it turned out that my guess was incorrect, and this Andrews Landscaping is well qualified. All right, any questions? All right, number 9, we're going to reject the bid because materials were
Yeah.
too high, right?
Yeah, the prices went up too high. There was only one bidder. They haven't bid in the past. And we just don't use that much of this material, whether it's stone or blacktop. And so I just don't think it's in the borough's best financial interest to award this one. So we're recommending that you reject this one. And it probably will not come back. We'll just, I don't think it's going to come back.
And the last one, number 10, the 2025 rain garden maintenance bid.
It's the incumbent contractor. We're very pleased with them. We're very pleased with a lot of these contractors in these bids here.
And it's Archweld for $19,598.
Yeah. Tight bid. It's only like $50 that separated the two.
Any questions? All right, number 10's on consent.
Okay.
All right, public safety? Oh, well, I guess that was me since Lisa, you were out. Okay. All right. So motion to approve the amended rules and regulations of the Civil Service Commission attachment. So we did not give a recommendation, Lisa, because you were out and because you you were kind of the most vocal with your feedback. So we wanted to give you a chance to read the new information come over. But the presentation that we had was that your questions were addressed and that they cleaned it up with the proper information.
I'm sorry,
Oh, okay. Then never mind. Table it. Table. All right, we will table it. Okay. Well, let's ask, because I think the person with the biggest concerns, do you have any questions? Do you?
Appointing authority. So I didn't have any additional questions.
All right. If you don't have any additional questions, should we not table it and just move it to consent at this point? Any?
You move it to discussion?
Are they going to be able to be here tomorrow?
Do they need to be here tomorrow? Let's put it on discussion, and then you can check and see if they need to be, yeah, and if they don't, then maybe we can move it to consent if they're okay. Okay. All right, motion to approve special events permit, Stanley Dreams Run annual event. So again, this is just an annual event. It's coming up again, and so they just did their application process. Any questions here? No. Okay. Consent? All right, Finance and Revenue Committee.
Approve grant resolution DCED Local Share Account Fund. And basically, this is $1 million grant for the Westchester Fire Department. It was approved 3-0.
For the truck.
Any questions? No? All right. Consent?
Thank you. Number 2, approve the filing of writs of execution and listing for sheriff sales and free and clear sale by Portnoy for unpaid property tax, sewer, and stream protection fees.
I just want to add a point of clarification. When I spoke about this last week, I had a letter in front of me from Portnoy that was referring to 3 specific properties that had a combined stream protection, sewer, and tax. We have since gotten another letter for Portnoy for 5 more properties that are specifically for stream protection. So it would be for a total of 8 properties.
Can I ask a question though? Why would property tax be there? Because that's something the Tax Claim Bureau handles.
The Portnoy collects for unpaid property taxes.
I don't think so. I mean, I know that you have to turn your delinquent real estate tax over every year.
Yeah, it goes.
And
to
after
Portnoy.
3 years, it goes to the Tax Claim Bureau to collect. So,
Well, the tax piece that is on here are quite a bit old. They go back to 2021.
And Barb, I had the amount that the delinquents owed, 34,897.24 cents. That was last week.
That was for the portion that was a combined of stream protection, tax, and sewer.
Right.
The other piece for the 5 other parcels. It's around $22,000. I can give you an exact number tomorrow.
That since those new properties came up, do we want to put this on discussion for tomorrow? Or do we want to approve everything now?
However you want to proceed. I mean, I'm fine if you want to put it on.
I think probably discuss, especially because Kristen's got a couple of questions. Why don't you guys clear things up and then we'll put it on for discussion and then we can make sure that you guys are aligned and then we can talk about the other 5. Okay.
What, my question was this to allow him to do what? Put a lien or go to sheriff's sale? 'Cause
So
doesn't the
these
sheriff's department.
These 8 properties have gone through the whole collection process with Portnoy, and they have reached the point where they can't go any farther. So they want to file a writ of execution, and I'm not an attorney.
yeah, so what they want to do is they probably already have the liens filed and they want to go ahead and try to collect on the lien by filing a writ. You have to do it. It's called a writ of scary fascia. So it's basically exposing the property to sale to collect the amount of the lien. That's what they'd like authority to do. And because it's such a drastic step, you always want to come back to the governing body to make sure that they're comfortable with them taking that step.
So essentially, they would, because they've gone as far as they can now, they would probably, the next steps would be sheriff's sale?
Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're exposing these properties to a sheriff. So I will tell you that in most cases, because we do this work for a lot of our clients, it forces either the mortgage company, if there's a mortgage company involved, or it forces the property owners to find a way to get, because they don't want to lose their home. And it's like, hey, we've been sending you notices, we've been sending you copies of the lien, you've been ignoring us, but now you can't ignore us. We're going to a sheriff's sale. So unfortunately, it costs a lot of money for the property owner, but it does get you paid.
But this is what we would have to do to get paid. So as long as we're in our legal rights to do so, we could.
Yeah, some municipalities choose not to do it. They just wait until the property ultimately gets sold some way, somehow. But if you want to get paid right now and you want your money now, then you have the right to do it. You're absolutely acting within your legal rights for sure.
Yeah, and I think the finance committee was on board with agreeing to this. I think just right now that there's a few more to talk about. And there's a question that Kristen brought up of, is Portnoy really the company? And so it's worth you guys having a conversation until tomorrow night, just to make sure we got all our T's crossed and I's dotted. Daryl's coming up to.
Are any of these properties tax exempt?
No. No, they're not.
All right. Discussion for tomorrow.
All right, motion to approve purchasing requests. I'll run through them. Hewlett Packard Financial Services, $14,984.84. That's an annual lease of the servers. The Able Recon Storm Sewer Relining Project near Hoops Park, $196,000. Plate Logic for $11,200. That's the annual service contract. Muni billing 2025, stream protection billing $18,014.40 billing. Muni billing 2025, real estate tax billing for $17,100. That's and that's billing as well. And we recommended 3-0 for all of those purchases.
Can I just make a point of clarification? Item F should not be on here. We're not finalized on that purchase yet. I expect to have more information for Finance Committee in December. So if we could remove that, please.
All right, so item F, cross that out, and we'll put on, are there any other questions on any of the other items? All right, then we'll put that on consent. All right, any other business? All right, I got some, because I think I missed, like, the short-term rental. I wanted to update the language or add a little language, so.
Right,
did I-
so that would be appropriate at the hearing to.
That would be tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I wasn't sure if I missed it, because it was
No.
a little bit of a whirlwind when I was doing the.
No. So tomorrow there'll be two different ordinance hearings. One on the zoning amendment to allow the use. And the second, if you adopt the zoning amendment to allow the use, we'll then consider Chapter 66, which is your property maintenance code, to add a new chapter to require rental permits for short-term rentals. And Nicole's concerns and things that she'd like to add relate to the Chapter 66. She'd like some additional language to be added. And I told her that it'd be appropriate to bring that to the full council, because what she's asking doesn't represent a material change, and a property maintenance code does not have to go to the county planning commission or to your planning commission. It can be done at the hearing setting, and you could, if you agree to that change, we could make that change tomorrow evening. You could still vote to approve the ordinance.
These are all fire safety related and based off of some of the feedback that we received from our constituent, Lisa Kearns. She was here tonight. And she had to leave. But Lisa, come back tomorrow. So we'll talk about it tomorrow. Thank you. Any other business? All right, seeing none, we will adjourn at 8:39 p.m. Thank you.